First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Now in here, as it says, a psalm of Asaph, God implored to confound his enemies. See, and these here being the enemies of the Lord are really also the enemies of Israel. Okay, so it says here, keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. Now remember, Asaph was a seer, right? So the Lord gave him, that divine inspiration to know these things, to have insight into these matters. Verse 2, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. See, thine enemies, which are also our enemies, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head, right? Basically to become proud. Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Right? Who does this start with? Esau, Edom. Right? But these elites, see, the elites of the world are not just Edomites. Right? You'd be surprised when you find out, you go deep into those secret societies. You got elites of the Moabites, the elites of the Ammonites. But as it says, they've taken crafty counsel against thy people. Who are the Lord's people? The Israelites. Right? The children of Israel. And these they are the wicked elites of this world. They have and consulted against thy hidden ones, who are the Israelites. Once again, they are the same thy people. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? But in remembrance amongst who? Amongst Israel, amongst us. Because they know who we are. They know what the truth is. But a part of causing the name of Israel to be no more in remembrance among us was cutting us off from our heritage, right? And teaching us that we were just black, right? Giving us that you're just black. That's not a nationality. That's not a people. But it's a part of their plan, their crafty counsel. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. See, that's a conspiracy. They're confederate against the Lord and his people. And who are they? It's going to list them. The tabernacles of Edom, first and foremost, which are the Edomites, right? And the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, okay, which are a tribe of Edom, the head. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, Ashur also is joined with them. And they have holpen the children of Lot, which are the children of Lot, are the descendants of Lot, which are Moab and Ammon. So they joined forces with them, right? They joined with them and conspired against us. A good portion is in our time now, but all throughout history, they've conspired against us, right? Selah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, right? So here, Asaph is saying, right, Lord, judge them, right? Give us the victory over them as you did when you gave us the victory over the Midianites, going to the time of the book of Judges, right, with Barak, right, and Deborah. It says here, as to Sisera and as to Jabin, and at the brook of Kishon, right? And remember, Sisera, he was the captain. I believe Jabin was the king, and Sisera was a captain in his army who ended up dying. They were both slain. Actually, they both died, right? Which perished at Endor. Now it mentions Endor here because Endor is is geographically in the same region, right? It's very, very close to Kishon or Kishon. So it's really talking about the same region, right? They became as dung for the earth, meaning they died. Make their nobles like Oreb and Zeb, yea, all their princes as Zeba and Zalmunna. Okay, and let's take a look here, right? Oreb and Zeb. This is now an account, during the time of Judges with what's his name, Gideon. Okay, so let's get a quick account, trip down memory lane real quick on those individuals. Starting here, this is Judges 7 and 25. It says here, and they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock Oreb, and Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan, or the other side Jordan, right? So that's what happened to Oreb and Zeb. Yea, all their princes as Zebah and Zalmunna, right? They suffered a similar fate where they were put to death. Let's go there real quick. Right, as Judges chapter 8, verse 12. It says here, and just getting the context, and when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them and took the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host. And Gideon the son of Joash returned from battle before the sun was up, and caught a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him. And he described him, or unto him, the princes of Succoth, and the elders thereof, even 70 men. And he came unto the men of Succoth, and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna. Because when Gideon was pursuing them, he wanted, aid, right, in terms of like bread and stuff for his men from these cities. And then the cities said no. They said, do you have the heads of Zebah and Zalmunna? You don't, right? So what the hell should we give you food and stuff for? Why don't you actually go and get them, and then you come back with that? He said, oh, okay, let's see what I'm going to do to you when I come back. So now he's back. So he says, what? Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give thee bread and thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth. Taught meaning he disciplined them, right? Let's read that in the NLT. It says here, and then Gideon took the elders of the town and taught them a lesson, punishing them with thorns and briars from the wilderness. He whooped the back of their old asses. Okay, just put it plainly. Verse 17, and he beat down the tower of Penuel and slew the men of the city. Then said he unto Zebah and Zalmunna, what manner of men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? And you can get more context if you read the whole chapter. But here, just getting to the point of the fate of Zebah and Zalmunna. And they answered, as thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king. And he said, they were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord Yahweh liveth, if ye had saved them alive, I would not slay you. If you hadn't killed my brethren, I would have let you live. And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. His balls hadn't dropped yet, right? He was still afraid, because he was like, damn, I gotta, shed blood? That's crazy, right? Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise thou and fall upon us. For as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks. That was what happened to Oreb, Zeb, and the princes as Zebah and Zalmunna. Okay? And here, as Asaph is saying, Lord, do this, onto our enemies that he just listed up above. So where we at? Verse 12, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. Okay, let's read verse 11 and 12, together in the NLT. It says, let their mighty nobles die as Oreb and Zeb did. Let all their princes die like Zebah and Zalmunna. For they said, let us seize for our own use these pasture lands of God. And what fate did they suffer? Destruction. Oh my God, make them like a wheel, and as the stubble before the wind. NLT says, oh my God, scatter them like tumbleweed, like chaff before the wind. Verse 14, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame setteth the mountain on fire, so persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm, right? With the judgments of the Lord. It's interesting that he likened it unto fire, because guess what? That's how the Lord is going to judge, the enemies, or his enemies. In our time, he's gathering them into the valley of Yahweh Shabbat to bring judgment upon them as fire burns a wood. It says, fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let's read that in the NLT. All right, it says, utterly disgrace them until they submit to your name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish. That men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high over all the earth. Right? Did not the scripture say he sets up one over it, right? And you know, he sets up one and takes down another, so that men may know he rules in the kingdom of men. See? And through his judgment, the scriptures say, the Lord is known in the judgment which he executeth. And that brings us to the end of the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.